Hi, everybody. I'm just looking at our screen to see how we're doing for quorum. I see we have me, two, three, four. So we need 29 people altogether since our staff do not count quorum. So I've just got my eyes on that. Welcome, everyone. I see the chat is active. Oh, two people listening on Fiona's link. Excellent. It's So then we only need 28 people altogether. Okay, people are starting to log in. So this is great. Twenty-two, almost there. Oh, there's another one. Okay, I'm starting to feel optimistic, so I'm going to start to share my screen with the deck. Oh, sorry. It looks like there's been some kind of an update on my system, so I might need to log out and then back in again, but I'll be right back. Sorry, I need to unmute myself. Can everybody see my screen with the deck? Okay, I see Dan giving me the thumbs up, so that's a good thing. So, bonjour tout le monde. Je suis Pamela Isfeld, la présidente de la PAS, et je vous souhaite la bienvenue. C'est le 60e Assemblée générale annuelle de la PAS. It's our 60th and 2025 annual general meeting. So I would just like to welcome everyone. But before we start, I would just like to note that I am chairing this meeting from the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people and acknowledge and respect them as the past, present, and future guardians and caretakers of these lands. And I know that some of you are joining from different places in Canada and around the world. And I just encourage you to take a moment to think of the traditional peoples of the lands where you're located and what that means for the lives that we're all living today. I will go on. We have a fairly tight agenda today, quite a few important issues to discuss. So I would just like just a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. We are recording this meeting, so it will be posted on our YouTube channel for people who can't make it. So please be aware of that if you choose to speak, that you will be recorded. Oui, c'est aussi une réunion bilingue. Je vais parler pour la plupart en anglais, mais les documents sont dans les deux langues et vous pouvez poser des questions et faire des commentaires dans la langue de vos choix. You can also use the chat to ask questions. Natalie, our assistant, will keep an eye on the chat and will let us know if there is anything that is extremely hot pursuit that we need to deal with. But in general, we will take questions first after the presentations by me and Daniel, and then at the end of the meeting and in accordance with the different agenda items. And we'll kind of wait until each presenter has finished, and then we will look at the questions, and if we can group some together or if some have already been answered, we'll deal with it that way. If not, we will get Natalie to read them out to us and we'll answer. And you can also put up your hand, but please be aware that you will be recorded and your voice and will appear on the recording if you would like to speak. So the first item of business is to adopt the agenda. So is somebody willing to move and someone else to second that we adopt the agenda? You could use your little hands to let me know. I see Allison has moved. Allison Poff has moved. Is somebody willing to second that we adopt the agenda for the meeting? I see Kirk Duguid has second, so thank you very much. Are there any objections to the agenda or any changes that anyone would like to propose? Going once, twice. I know that that we're going to try to finish here by 5:30 so that we can have a quick break before we do the award of the Randy Orr Memorial Award. So we're going to try and stick to a fairly tight schedule. So thank you. So since there are no objections, the agenda is passed. The second item on the agenda is sorry, I need to go back to my thing. The presentation of the executive committee. And I would like to welcome our new members. And I just need to move this thing out of the way so I can see everyone. New members: Leah Matthews, Nick McLennan, Cynthia Carlone, Valentine Ostashevsky, Shauna Parr, Eudania Riley, Kirk Duguid, Chris Heffernan, Allison Poff, who is coming back, and Sasha Oliveira. So welcome to all of them. And I'd like to say thank you to Ashley Durick, Marc-Andre Desmarais, Trish Chang, and Zach Campbell, who are entering year 2 of their terms. And thank you also to our outgoing members, Gabrielle Bastien, Megan Dalby, Andre Marquis, William Dunlop, Logan McNamara, Michael Crichton, Liam Kirkpatrick, Tam Ames, and John Gossel, who have finished their terms. I'd like to give a particular shout out to Tam Ames and John Gossel, who have both been stalwarts of the executive committee for many years and who will be missed. Tam is off to greener pastures taking retirement, so we'll still see her around. And John, we still know where he lives, and we're gonna keep him involved in PAFSO things. I also have a sad message to convey that we just learned on Friday of the sad passing of another former executive committee member, James Johnson, who served with us from 2020 to 2022. He's the spouse of former ExCom colleague Suhaila El-Katab, and he passed away on Friday suddenly of a sudden heart attack. So we're very sad to learn of the loss of this colleague and friend, and our condolences go out to Suhaila and his other friends and family and loved ones. So that's a sad note that we acknowledge here just now. The next item of on our agenda is the adoption of the minutes of last year's meeting. So those are in your document packages. I just like to note that if you have any, small clerical changes, we can deal with those secretarially. I mean, if a name was spelt wrong or something like that. But if you have substantive changes that affect, how a decision was made or something for the record, now is the moment to propose those changes. Does anyone have any changes that they would like to propose amendments to the minutes of the AGM? I am not seeing any. So is anyone willing to make a motion that we adopt the minutes of last year's AGM, the 2024 AGM? Dania, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Thank you for moving. And then I see Lauren Hurst has seconded. So thank you very much. Are there any objections to passing the minutes? I am not seeing any, so the minutes are adopted. Okay, thank you, everybody. And with that, I will move on to my president's report. You see, I have a few slides here. I'm using them more as a reminder for me instead of notes, rather than, whoops, sorry, as as slides that I will read. But I'm very pleased to be starting my officially new 3-year term as your president in September. And I would just like to begin by thanking everyone for your confidence and trust in me and allowing me to come back for a third and final term. Good thing that running slides is not necessarily a key part of the job description, although I would say it's important. I have new terms of reference that were approved by the executive committee. They're similar to the previous ones, but have more emphasis on representation and advocacy and planning and policy, since our governance piece has been consolidated a little bit and requires a little bit less day-to-day engagement on my part. They also involve a requirement to report explicitly to the AGM on the strategic plan that was adopted last year that came into effect for 2025 to 2028. And the bottom line really is that we're facing some serious challenges, including the comprehensive economic review, the renewal of our collective bargaining agreement in that context. But we as PAFSO are in a strong position. We've got we're developing our capacity even further. We're increasing our visibility and reach, and our finances are strong. So we are in a good spot to deal with these challenges and to represent you going forward. So I am happy to report that I feel fairly confident about that one. This is just a quick reminder of the priorities that are in the strategic plan. Protéger et représenter, défendre les intérêts et s'engager auprès du public et les médias et les décideurs, et aussi gouverner et faire fonctionner l'organisation. So those are the three broad pillars of the strategic plan. And that is what I will report to you on. In the protect and represent section, that is really the core labor relations business of PAFSO. That's where we deal with collective bargaining. And in that one, we have launched our collective bargaining consultations, which we will discuss under a separate item. We've been working on the implementation of the new foreign service directives that were agreed last year, and there's quite a bit of new stuff in there that needs to be interpreted and made real. So that's taking up quite a lot of time for our organization, but I think we're making quite a bit of progress. We have our ongoing action on the MSH healthcare abroad issue. Our mandamus application was just heard, and we're waiting to hear the court's decision. We should hear sometime in the next month or so whether that will go ahead. We also have our human rights complaint and our policy grievance that are ongoing, and we're always in the process of negotiating with the employer as these things happen to see if we can reach a solution outside these hardcore mechanisms. We are seeing some improvements in the way that MSH is functioning, but still not enough. Last year, we also were engaged in on workforce adjustment at IRCC in particular. And we are preparing for the CER fallout and the possibility of even more workforce adjustment there and perhaps at GAC and other departments as well. As part of that, we created a new labor relations team leader position to increase the capacity of our labor relations advisors, and also to help us move towards a more interest-based versus a rights-based approach. That was something that we talked about last year when we presented the strategic plan, that we would like to orient ourselves a little bit more towards figuring out what we can do for people and looking at the broad interests of the membership, as opposed to focusing on exclusively or so strongly on where we have mechanisms. I mean, we're not going to stop that, obviously, but we would like to look to have a little bit more capacity to look a bit beyond what's written there, what's just written there, and say, okay, maybe this is not written down exactly, worded exactly in a way that makes it very clear that this is something that we can ask for. But if something is in the broader interests of the membership, we want to see if we can focus more strongly on finding a way to do these things. And we've taken some concrete steps to do that. We have also, on the defending defensive interests advocacy point, last year this was our 60th anniversary as our formation of as a professional association. And we relaunched the Foreign Service Officer Award. We had a big gala in beginning of June, at the National Gallery with over 200 people there to celebrate the anniversary and our history. We are also working on our Dip Notes book, which will answer that question and help us answer that question. What do foreign service officers actually do? What could I read? That would tell me what foreign service life is like. And we had hoped to have that ready right around now. But we had, good news, bad news. Our key person who was working on that, Adam, got a great job at CTV in exactly his career area and left us for another job. So that has set us back, set us a little bit behind on getting that done. And so we're now hoping to have that out for next year. So hopefully in time for next Christmas, you can get a copy of our book and give it to your friends and family who are wondering what the heck it is Foreign Service officers do. We're getting ready. We have another 60th anniversary in 2027, which is the anniversary of us getting our bargaining ticket. That was when it was 1967 that federal public servants got the right to bargain collectively. And Foreign Service officers, PAFSO was in that group. So we have it's another 60th anniversary, which I'm calling in my head PAFSO 62. And we are going to do a round of celebrations for that. And this time we really want to focus on the future. The PAFSO 60 was understandably and rightfully more of a look at the past, at our history. And for PAFSO 62, we would really like to look at the future, and we're hoping to really engage some of our more recent arrivals in the profession and the people who might be around for the next 60 years. So watch your email and so on for that. We also launched the first of our 2 advocacy videos. You can see them on our YouTube channel, and we intend to get those out. Those will be a valuable tool for us in making the case that Foreign Service officers are, very key to Canada's security, prosperity, and overall well-being. And we really want to make that point. We continue to work with our other colleagues in the other bargaining agents on, dealing with the issues surrounding the last election and other questions. And we're working to enhance our partnerships with outside PAFSO and outside that area. For example, one of the big initiatives was our partnership with CIC, also the work that we've been doing with the Black Employees Network on sponsoring of working on the C.J. Scott Memorial Scholarship, which you'll hear a little bit more about, or you heard about in our professional committee report, and more of those kinds of things. We're trying to get PAFSO more visible in the overall foreign policy and public policy discussion area, so that they come to us. People come to us when they want to talk about these issues, rather than sometimes we feel trying to get the information from the employer, maybe not getting it, and then going sometimes to some weird places that we then have to correct. So that is another part of what we've been working on. On the govern and operate side of the equation, as I mentioned, we restructured our office a little bit. We have returned to having an executive director position rather than a general manager position, to provide a little bit more of that higher level operational management. We created the labor relations team leader position, which is now staffed by Bert, our former general manager, who, as we were trying to staff the LRTL position, we realized that this was actually the perfect position for Bert, and really the best place to deploy his expertise. So we're really pleased that Bert agreed to make this move for us, and we feel like this really has us firing on all cylinders as the PAFSO office going into what we need to do. We've also been increasing the number of direct consultations that we're doing with the membership. You'll remember we did a questionnaire earlier in the summer on your concerns about the comprehensive economic review. We just did the questionnaire that we'll discuss later in the meeting on the collective bargaining agreement. We do ongoing governance training and work on policies and procedures with the executive committee to make sure that we are up on the best modern practices. We are looking at, we've been working to renew our participation on the XCOM, attract more volunteers and attract members to other volunteer opportunities. Like some of you will remember that we're calling for volunteers for our PAFSO street team, which we hope will help us work on our advocacy and getting our messages out at the grassroots level. And if you are interested in becoming involved in PAFSO, there are plenty of ways to get involved outside executive committee. And I hope you will consider, reaching out to info@pafso.com after this meeting, and we can set up a coffee or a Zoom or Teams chat to talk about your interests and where you might be able to help us out. Our new executive director is also looking at a review of our management practices and the way we're operating in the office, and I will leave that to him to talk about in his next item. But that is part of our governance pillar as well. I see that we do still, despite being very optimistic and despite the work that we've done over the past year, we are really facing some serious challenges but also some opportunities for 2026. We're looking, of course, like everybody else, at the comprehensive economic review, and for us as well, our renegotiation of our collective agreement in that context. But, the way the issues are being framed and the issues facing Canada really does kind of put Canada's foreign service front and center. And we are, this is also an opportunity to make our case and to remind Canadians in a way that will hopefully outlast the current discussions of what the foreign service really does for them and why they need us. I will take questions after this, I turn over the floor to Dan, who now will do his executive director report. Just to introduce Dan before we go, some of you might remember him. Dan Whalen is a former Foreign Service officer, so we're particularly pleased to have him back with us, bringing his experience as an FS and also his legal background as a former employment lawyer, which we're hoping will help us work on some of these issues that kind of fall into the gray area between things that we need and things that are in the collective agreement. And he also brings a considerable amount of executive management experience. So really a great package and very useful to us at this point in our history, and we're really happy to have him here with us. So Dan, here are your slides, and I'm going to turn off if I can figure out how to turn off my camera so that you don't see my weird little face there while you're talking. And I will turn the floor over to you.
Merci beaucoup. Thanks very much, Pam, and hopefully I can rely on you to advance slides as I go through. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. As Pam has mentioned, my name is Dan Whalen. I'm the new Executive Director here at PAFSO. I want to start by thanking everyone for their attendance. I also want to welcome our new board members and thank our outgoing board members for their time and efforts over the past years. A little background on me to add to what Pam has already stated. I do recognize some names on this call, and I think some of you might recognize my face and name as well. I am a Foreign Service officer. I joined Global Affairs. It wasn't Global Affairs when I joined it. I think that the department changed names about 6 times during my time there. I joined in 2009, served overseas in Egypt during the Arab Spring. I was also GSRP in Saudi Arabia a few years after that. And when I was at headquarters, I was primarily in the legal branch because of my legal background. I really loved my time at Global Affairs, but I left GAC about 7 years ago now and went to PSPC to run a program there called the Integrity Regime. I worked also as the departmental liaison in the minister's office at PSPC, and then returned back to run the Integrity Regime at the senior director level. So I became an EX. It's okay. You hold the booze for later. But I really did miss my time as a Foreign Service officer and missed my connection with the Foreign Service community. So after spending the last year on the National Security Program at the Canadian Forces College in Toronto, I was very excited at the opportunity to come back as Executive Director of PAFSO and get back into the Foreign Service community in a more senior and leading role. So I'm very proud to be back I'm very proud to be a member of a strong team at PAFSO. So looking forward to bringing my experience to bear as a Foreign Service officer, as someone who's legally trained, as someone who has some executive management experience as well. So really looking forward to it and really happy to be back here where I feel like I belong among the FS. Maybe, Pam, we could move to the next slide and I can speak a little bit about what are evolving as my priorities as executive director. So just to contextualize a little bit, you've heard from our president, Pam Isfeld, who leads on the governance aspects of PAFSO. My role as executive director, a little more geared towards feeding into that governance from an operational angle. I started at PAFSO at the end of August, and it's just a little over 6 weeks. So my time has been taken up with 3 main areas of focus. The first one, obviously, is working with our dedicated team at PAFSO to learn about the organization and find ways to manage operations effectively and pursuant to direction from the board and working in collaboration with the board. The learning curve has been pretty steep, but at the same time, extremely interesting. So I thank the team for their support as I go through that sort of management level review of our processes and procedures here at PAFSO. Another key aspect that I really want to get fed into our operations is finding ways to take the strategic direction from our strategic plan and make sure that they're reflected in our day-to-day operations to meet strategic goals. Pam has already spoken a little about some of the changes that were already in place when I joined, in particular, starting again with an executive director level position in the organization and having a team lead amongst the labor relations advisors to help mentor and guide the work of those advisors who are extremely strong, extremely good, and can benefit also from some higher level, someone who can take a bit of time to step back and think strategically about how we want to present those cases. And I'm very happy that we have Bert Meyer on board to help us in that regard. Another item I have listed here is office modernization. I won't bore you with the details of some of the smaller things that I'm thinking about in that regard, but we are coming to the end of our lease at our current office space at 47 Clarence Street. One of the key items that I'll be focusing on, I'm focusing on now and will continue to focus on, is to work with the board to secure some new accommodation that's better fit for purpose in a modern office environment. We can go ahead to the next slide. And I just want to highlight some of the files that are of particular interest to me as I get stuck in to this new role. The transition, obviously, of the Public Service Healthcare Plan to Canada Life, mainly for our members working abroad, still causes hardship on many members. And unfortunately, MSH's continued inability to process claims within reasonable delays and reasonable timelines is having significant impacts on our members. We currently have 3 processes underway with respect to MSH. Pam has mentioned them at the outset. I'll just provide a quick update on each in turn. First is the policy grievance. We filed a policy grievance on April 10, 2024. That grievance is currently in abeyance. PSAC has filed a similar grievance. And in that process, TBS has filed preliminary objections to the validity of that grievance. So the board is currently assessing those arguments from TBS on the PSAC grievance, and the outcome of the board's decision on that grievance will be material to our strategy going forward. So PAFSO will reassess our position based on that outcome, and we will be sure to keep the membership apprised of any developments in that regard. We also have a human rights complaint filed in September. TBS raised preliminary issues with the board in an effort to have that human rights claim dismissed for a number of issues. Our response back on those initial objections is due in early November. We're well positioned to provide a very strong and detailed response. And our response will highlight some of the individual issues and experiences from our membership, showing areas where their claims have been denied based on prohibited grounds. These cases have been gathered by PAFSO since the transition first occurred back in July of 2023. And I wanted to say a special thanks to members who stepped forward to speak to us about those cases. They're very personal in nature, difficult to talk about, but absolutely important that we have those individual cases to actually build a case around. So thanks so much to our members for staying engaged on that. The final process we have in place is a little more difficult to explain. Maybe the legal folks on the call will find it interesting. It's a mandamus application. A mandamus is a form of judicial review that basically demands a certain type of action from an official, a government official. The application that we filed roughly seeks a court order for TBS to implement a functional healthcare plan for our members that serve abroad. To be successful on a mandamus application, it's a fairly high bar because you're forcing a particular action. So while the case was taken largely as a symbolic maneuver, and its likelihood of success is far from guaranteed, but with that said, following the hearing at the federal court, which took place on the 18th of September, our lawyers spoke to us after the fact, and they were very confident that the judge had understood our position, had asked smart questions, and seemed to understand the point that we were trying to make. So we may not get a big win out of it, but again, as a symbolic and strategic maneuver to keep TBS's feet to the fire, we considered it to be a good move, and we're glad that we did it. Pam mentioned maybe we could hear from them in a month. The information I'm getting now is that it might be a little longer than that, so I don't want us to have expectations that we'll hear back on that very quickly. Sometimes it can take up to 6 months to hear back. Hopefully we could hear more in the nature of 1 to 3 months. But again, when we hear back, we will be sure to update the membership on those developments as they come forward. Another key highlight file, I think of no surprise to anyone, is the comprehensive economic review and workforce adjustment. Again, probably no surprise when I say to people that it's a very challenging time, and it's also a very uncertain time. We're still waiting on a budget, which we hope to see soon. Much of what we have to react to is preliminary in nature. It's not based on clear information. We don't have numbers really to deal with. So our intent at this time is to engage directly with departmental officials, TBS staff at the highest possible levels as the situation unfolds, so that we can best understand where we're going, and so that we can ensure that FS interests are protected. Unfortunately, we're in a bit of a holding pattern on that for now. My sense is that it's still kind of unclear to what extent even the employer's representatives are aware of next steps. So for this one, agility will be a key aspect of meeting the challenge. Agility, of course, for FS is a serious word that we all hold dear, our ability to stay agile. So at PAFSO, we'll be staying agile so we can represent you and represent your interests effectively, and we'll be here to support the membership as the situation evolves. I also have collective bargaining listed here. We're prepping the groundwork for our next round of collective bargaining. We have a very strong team. Our lead negotiator is on the call with us this evening, and some of you will have seen and responded to a questionnaire on collective bargaining priorities that we sent out We have a full agenda item on that, so I'll leave further discussion of that for that time. But thanks again to everyone for your considered responses to that questionnaire. Some very interesting information has come through that. I want to highlight also right now, these are just some of the items that we're working on amongst a much broader set of labor relations and advocacy work that PAFSO does on your behalf. Whether it's fighting to advance your Phoenix pay issues, clarify FSD requirements, or maintaining a cohesive FS community through outreach and events. PAFSO, again, we're here to support you, and I would encourage you all to reach out should you need us. On the event side, I wanted to highlight one item. PAFSO will be hosting our incoming FS cohort at GAC's 111 Sussex building tomorrow for lunch. Looking forward to meeting some incoming FS. It's unfortunate we were not able to do so ahead of the AGM, but we look forward to engaging with our new members. Both Pam and I will be on hand for that meeting, so should you happen to be at 111 tomorrow, pop down afterwards to say hello. If you'd like to say hello, I'd love to see any of you there. PAFSO's achieved a lot this year, and none of it would have been possible without the hard work and dedication of PAFSO staff and the board of directors of PAFSO. As the executive director, I'm very appreciative of our team, very grateful to be able to rely on hardworking professionals, a hardworking professional group of individuals here. I'm looking forward to learning more from them. I'm looking forward to a great year ahead as your new executive director. So with that, I will say thank you, and maybe now would be a good time to open for questions that you may have for Pam or for myself.
Thanks, Dan. I just took the PowerPoint down just to make it a little bit easier to see everybody. So, Natalie, have there been any questions in the chat? I see.
No, I do not see any question for the moment, but please, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to write it.
Okay, we can give everybody a second. If not, if people aren't ready to ask questions just yet, there will be another opportunity like right at the end of the meeting. So I don't want to pressure anyone into speaking up now if they are not ready. But we can give everyone a second. You can raise your hand or use the chat. Okay, I am not seeing any. So maybe since we've got quite a bit to get through, maybe we can go to, I see Samantha is asking there's an event for incoming FS tomorrow morning. No, sorry, that's the training at Global Affairs. It's we're visiting the training for new recruits at GAC. And we're gonna go and talk to them as part of that meeting. So unfortunately, that's not that doesn't include IRCC. I believe we are in touch with IRCC separately on what is going on with their training and whether there's an opportunity. Marty is on a well-deserved vacation at the moment, and he is the one who usually does that liaison piece over there. So I'm afraid I don't know the details of when the next thing is coming up, but I do know that there is a separate track for us to go and talk to new recruits at IRCC. Okay. So we met already with the current cohort. We did meet with some people like earlier in the spring, and I'm not sure. I think there is something else planned for this before Christmas as well. But I'm afraid I do not have the details at the I was going to say at the tip of my brain. It's on top of my brain on the tip of my tongue. Okay,
I'm sorry, Pam, I don't have that detail either, but certainly I'll loop back with Marty when he's back. I know we want to meet with our incoming cohorts as quickly as possible.
Okay, sounds good. Can I will go back to our sharing the deck. Where is my deck? Sorry, I should not mess around with these things.
We do
There we
have
are.
a
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, go
We do
ahead.
have a question from Nicholas. I don't know if
Okay.
you want to.
Could you read it out? Sorry, I
Yes. Yes. Curious what is currently being done to better support FS1, and if there's our conversation being had with the employer at this time. We are hearing that the pool is over-programmed and that is wishfully, sorry for my French, is on the way to rebrand FS2 boxes to FS1s. However, a shortage of boxes abroad remains, and the question of equal pay for equal work is also raised. Curious what is being done to better support the few hundreds new FS1 recruits brought in over the past few years.
So that is an ongoing issue that we are dealing with on a regular basis at GAC. It's something that we have identified in the last few months has grown, I think, a little bit more intense as there are more and more people and they're being recruited, and GAC is trying to keep the pools as full as possible. That will also be affected by the comprehensive economic review. We discuss these things regularly with the employer. We do have our regular human resources labor management consultation committee that talks about these issues on a regular basis. But I do think that we need to schedule some further discussions, I think, with that cohort to talk about, maybe to give a few more details on what exactly the specifics of what's going on. Part of the problem is that nobody knows at the moment what is going on with this SIR. And until we get some clarity on that, I mean, it's really quite hard to get the employer to commit to anything or to give us information on what we can and can't expect. So, we're waiting, a lot of us were waiting to see what the budget will say on November 4th. That will give us and also the employer side, frankly, a better sense of what they're dealing with. But I do agree. I mean, it's quite an uncertain time to have just joined the department and to be seeing all of the different things that are happening and what could be affecting people. But we are aware of these particular issues, and we are looking at how we can address them. Perhaps, there may need to be some considerations in collective bargaining. And Dan, I don't know if you want to talk. I mean, are you hearing from people at the office on, specifically on the labor relations side? I mean, are there people bringing forward grievances? Is there a pattern or anything that that we would want to highlight or people should be aware of?
At this stage on that item, I haven't heard about any patterns. I think one of the other elements that will likely play into this is reviews of job descriptions, especially as we move forward, and the reviews of job descriptions as it relates to level. So this is an important point and one that we definitely want to keep an eye on so that we don't find ourselves slipping up and down levels and running afoul of issues with respect to equal pay, equal work. So thank you very much for raising it.
Thanks. I mean, we are engaged with GAC on the review of the standard job descriptions, and we should be getting from them in the next few weeks their draft of those standard job descriptions, and we'll have an opportunity to consult with members on what they think of what the whether they're fitting, what's captured, what's not captured. These have not been reviewed for a very long time. I mean, I think we're talking 20 years, and it's long overdue. And it'll be an important exercise because that will determine a lot of what will happen. Hopefully, it won't be another 20 years before that happens, but we definitely need to need to be on top of that, and we will want your input. I also encourage you, if you have specific things that are happening, in your own work unit or to you personally that you think violate the collective agreement, are not fair. If you're being asked to do work without, that is outside your job description, above your level, without acting pay, without proper compensation, please reach out to info@pafso.com and ask to be connected to one of our labor relations advisors who can give you some advice on whether what is going on is something that that we can pursue recourse on. Any other questions before I move on to Allison and the treasurer report?
We've got a
Yeah.
couple in the chat, Pam. There's one on Buda Papier, the increase in the budget item. Should we cover that now or under the budget item?
Let's cover that under the budget. Yeah.
Great, thanks so much. We also have questions about the FS3 pool and delays on the FS3 pool and links to the potential links to the CER. And other concerns raised about FS positions not being filled, again, as a result of potential links to the CER. So, what I would say there is our instincts around linking these potential delays and lack of action to the CER. It kind of comes back to what I was mentioning earlier about the uncertainty, even on the employer side, that potentially may be feeding into this, and whether or not strategically right now it's a good idea to press on that in the absence of information about where the CER is going. It's an open question, but I would welcome your thoughts on it as well.
Yeah, part of the problem is, we were assured a couple months ago that, they were going to go ahead with all the appointments. They were just verifying the last things. There's, I guess, still a couple of reference checks that are outstanding for people in the FS3 pool in particular. But really, I think the big issue is they do not know what they're going to be dealing with when the final CER cuts and so on are announced. And I don't mean to frighten people, but there is, I guess, a possibility that we may be seeing some serious cuts to the numbers of FS positions at different levels. And I think that they are, they're being cautious. They don't want to promote people into a group where their positions might be getting cut. And the bottom line is, if it does go that far and you do end up with having to go to a SERLA, which is selection of employees for retention and layoff, which is basically a reverse order of merit selection process where you have to compete for your job, you may want to think twice about whether you're better off to be, say, at the FS2 level where you've been for a few years and, you have an established track record versus being in a position where you're newly appointed to a new level and you're having to compete with people who have been in for 10 years or so, I get that it's really frustrating and, people have earned these promotions and want to get them and, are, perhaps acting and want life to have a little bit more certainty and things to be a little bit more solid. But the fact is that right now we are all dealing with a very high level of uncertainty, and that's not going to change. Hopefully on November 4th, we'll get a little bit better sense of what's going to come out for the Foreign Service, for Global Affairs and IRCC in the budget. And that will help us all plan life a little bit better. But until then, I'm afraid there's not very much we can say. We can't tell you because the employer is not telling us. And I do think that for a large part of it is that they just do not know themselves. So I wish I had something more optimistic to say, but I unfortunately do not. Are there any other questions? Question, commentaire? Une fois? Deux fois?
There's still some coming up in the chat there, Pam, if you're able to view them. If not, I can just read them out.
Yeah.
FS4 bracket, if it's indeed cut, will PAFSO be looking to ensure the top salary steps are attached to the end of the FS3 bracket, protecting our group's salary ceiling.
Well, I would hope that that would definitely be something that we would want to try. We would be fighting for, but it's hard for us to address a hypothetical until we're faced with it. I think we can't really say for sure what our strategy would be. It always depends what you're asked to trade off for that, right? So we can talk a little bit more about some of that when we get to the questionnaire. Is there anything else?
Someone asking, so Fiona Jarvis asking for an access or breakdown in levels and streams, any other data related to position in those levels and streams. So, I think what might be good for folks to consider is, as Pam mentioned earlier on, we've got a lot of opportunity for engagement by membership. So if you have a particular issue, like HR classification and you want to get stuck into it, reach out. We will have an HR committee, and I think the HR committee will be very busy in the coming year. So would love to talk more, Fiona, about participation on that, on groups and levels. Regarding the bidding process, I'd like to raise a point for consideration. This is from Kirk Duguid. Currently, after considering FS officers at level, all other candidates, including other experienced FS officers, are in the same pool as other classifications. Has there been any consideration of creating a tiered approach? For example, having a second priority group for other FS members before opening the competition more broadly. This could help maximize the pool of candidates with core foreign service experience. Again, good idea. Pam, reaction to that?
We have had that's been proposed. We've had different incarnations of that over the years. Part of the issue is that the department, global affairs in particular, IRCC is sometimes not, they're a bit more rational on some of these things. Changes its needs each year. Right. They look at, how many people they have, what their needs are, and they adjust those assignment guidelines each year. I personally would like to see something a little bit more stable. But it's definitely something that we can keep proposing. I'm with you guys. I think that all FS who are willing to go on posting should be assigned before anyone from outside is considered. But from year to year, depends on what they're looking at in the pool. And something like that really is the level of detail that we will be looking at the HR committee. So again, if you're interested, I would suggest that you that's an area to get stuck in on some of those issues. So I don't know why I can't see the chat on this.
No, it's good. I got it up here, and I think we've covered everything. So, and I'm just looking at the time and wondering, are we doing good on time?
Yeah, I think we're doing pretty well on time.
What does stuck in mean? Stuck in means get involved.
Yes. Dig in on an issue. Okay, so if there's no other hot pursuit, I will move to the next item so that we can do the financial stuff, because passing the budget and so on is really the main issue that we need to do today. It's the big decision item. So I will turn over to Allison to take over and talk you through the budget.
Thank you. Can you turn off your screen sharing and I'll turn mine on?
Okay.
Okay, are you able to see a share? Okay, alors, vous regardez maintenant le rapport sur l'adhésion. Alors, assez rapidement, à cause du fait que tous les documents étaient partagés avant la réunion. Alors, ce qu'on voit ici, c'est vraiment, on a vu un agrandissement dans l'unité de négociation, environ une centaine de personnes. Alors, assez stable. Et ensuite, un agrandissement un peu plus petit pour les membres associés et les membres affiliés. To highlight, this is as of October 2nd, keeping in mind anybody who has been promoted or anybody who has moved into an FS position, either acting or returning to FS. It takes a while for the departments to catch up. So we are never 100% sure of our membership. So please let us know if you are not paying your membership dues to PAFSO. Please contact the office and let us know. Alors, la prochaine document, c'est vraiment, so this is the audited financial statements from 2024. So you would have had a chance to review these. This goes through and summarizes what we've been working on. You'll note some higher expenses than others. A lot of that is related to labor relations and legal costs. It is not cheap to go to court. And we don't necessarily have the people on staff who can represent us during the mandamus or any of the other stuff. So we have to bring in specialists. So there is a cost related to that. But you'll notice at the same time, we are continuing to come in under budget each year. And we've been fairly aggressive with managing our investments to try and get the highest return back to continue to make up for the chaos that was the pandemic, to put it lightly. So we're in good shape there. So if there's no questions on the audited statement, is there somebody who's willing to put forward a motion to adopt? I know finances are super popular with everybody, but Leila, thank you. And
Can I
anybody
second
who,
if there isn't a, yeah, I can second. Okay. Or
yeah, or Sabrina can also second. Perfect. Thank you. Alors, la dernière document, c'est le budget pour l'année 2026. Please be aware that the PAFSO office's budget follows the calendar year, so not the fiscal year that you are used to either at GAC or IRCC. Alors, comme d'habitude, we're modest in what we're expecting from membership dues, and that goes back to the uncertainty around membership numbers because of significant delays, more so from GAC in reporting new members. I understand somebody had a question on bout de papier, so I apologize. The chat function is not working on mine. So you would have seen in the last year, bout de papier was closer to $20,000. They were not able to get out the number of editions that they were hoping for. So when you see it in the budget, so the publication is 45,000, they're aiming for the 4 editions. We don't always hit that. Yeah.
no, and that's also some of the funding for the book. For related to some of the distribution and marketing and so on for the book, which now we thought we would be publishing around the end of this year, but marketing and distributing in next year. So we had included some money for that in the boo item.
Great, thank you. So the other unique items you'll see for 2026 have to do with the office. So as Dan mentioned, we are looking to relocate. So we will be able to save money in office rent once we move. But obviously there's costs around that, such as moving, such as shredding, doing a general cleanup. For all of that, the other big costs you'll be seeing are the labor relations. Again, we're seeing more of our cases going to educate. I can't even say that we're going before courts or before people need representation that we don't necessarily specialize in the office when we get into some specialty issues. And we do also have an ongoing legal case. And then obviously the mandamus Our legal colleagues will know that private sector lawyers are not cheap. And unfortunately, that is who we have to rely on when we get into those specialized cases. 'Cause I'm not sure we want to put our best foot forward, and there is a cost associated with that. That being said, the executive committee strongly believes that it is a good investment because of the challenges our membership have been having around certain issues. So that is essentially the proposed budget. Are there any questions around that?
So I can see, for some reason now I
Okay.
can see the chat, whereas I
Okay.
couldn't before. So I see there's a few questions, and one, I'll take the last one first. Someone is asking, has consideration been given to completely digitizing Bout de Papier to modernize it and focus on expanding reach? It pretty much is completely digitized now. It's digital first. And so it's published on our website, and if you have a subscription, you get a free digital subscription. The only paper, we do keep some, we print some paper copies because of some of our legacy members, there's a lot of retirees and a lot of people who, really don't want to deal with like a digital copy, and so we keep because those are long-standing subscription holders, we keep some subscriptions, some paper copies available to them, and also as swag and to distribute to MPs' offices and so on. We find that they will look at a paper copy of things, but not at a digital copy. So it's quite a small number of paper copies that are printed. I think only maybe like 400 or something like that. And the reason that it's not a smaller number is really because a smaller number is more expensive. So whatever number it is that we picked for the cheapest paper cost. So really the cost of printing is not it's not a big component of Bout de Papier. And we're always looking at ways to expand the reach digitally, but that's a sort of ongoing project. And then other questions were, how many staff FTEs is PAFSO currently employing, and what's the anticipated savings of the office move? So Dan and Allison, can you answer that between the two of you?
I can take the office move. It will really depend on what is out in the market and where we end up. I will say right now, we tried to renegotiate with our current landlord. There's significant vacancies in the building where we are. And we did, and I'm using we, like I was there. The office tried to renegotiate. The landlord was not interested. And so we believe it's time to move somewhere where we'll be able to get, better bang for our buck, to make the office look more modern, to perhaps look at having someplace where there's parking available, close to public transportation, but also if there's a savings and somebody has to come to the office, we could reimburse for a taxi or an Uber, right? So getting people down there. There's also some concerns in the market right now. So if any of our staff do have to work after hours, there's some health and safety concerns that as employers, we need to be aware of. So I'm not sure how many of you have been down around the office building at night, particularly if you're in the parkade across the street. Well, it's well lit, you will still run into people in the stairwell. So yeah, there's some health and safety concerns for employees and also for members if they have to come. If we want to do event after hours, it's hard to convince people to come down. It's getting harder to convince people to come down to the market. So that's kind of the office. That being said,
sorry, Allison,
yeah.
could I just jump in? Because I think that Dan has been working on this lately on some specifics, and I think we might be able to give a little bit more of a concrete number on what is it we're looking at. We're thinking we're going to be able to reduce our expenses by a third to a half, right? Roughly.
Well, I don't want to get too specific on numbers because, as always, when it comes to renting a place, it's a little bit about trade-offs. But right now, there is definitely an opportunity for us to, take advantage of vacancies, take advantage of availability, and there's a window there. So I was discussing this with our broker earlier today. We could see a reduction of up to a third for a similar office building. Again, depending on availability, depending on location. But we should be able to expect savings in terms of cost of rent because we have that window right now. Staff, we have Pam, including you and I, 10 full-time staff, 3 part-time staff.
Okay. That's that. The other question was, are there efforts being made to ensure that the department is providing a timely list of all active members? I understand that quite a few FS1s have yet to hear from PAFSO despite having been FS for some time now. I can answer that one. Oh, yes. We have, I mean, that is a significant part of Marty's job, dealing with both GAC and IRCC to make sure to keep those lists up to date. It's, it's not just, I mean, it is about providing service to people, but for us, it's also about making sure that we are getting the dues from people that, we need to operate. And it is an ongoing challenge. It's something we are very aware of. I see that a few FS1s have yet to hear from PAFSO despite having been FS for some time now. That is part of why we're doing this outreach tomorrow, is to reach out to people directly and say, hey, if you haven't, if we haven't been notified by the department that you've been hired, we might not know, but you can contact us, info@pafso.com, provide a copy of your letter of offer, and we can register you and start getting you your information. So if you hear of people who've been on the job for a while and haven't heard from us, please encourage them to contact us and make sure that they are on the list. How long could our current strike fund last in the event of job action, both full strike and rotating job action? And what is strike pay for our unit set at? So our strike fund is set to, our commitment is, target is to be able to pay full salaries for everyone for 10 days for the entire membership. I believe that we are close to being able to do that. And then obviously, how long it would last in terms of rotating strikes would depend on what we decided. Would we have people off 1 day a week? Would we have some people off completely and other people off, not at all? We don't want to get into too many details on that because, that's an important part of any strategy that we would be developing. But the target amount for strike is 100%, which is unusual for a union, and pay for 2 weeks. Allison, did you want to talk any more about the Job Action Fund, where it is, what?
No, I will just add that every year we aim to have a surplus. And then we take that surplus and we invest it in what we think is the best return. So right now, GICs are doing better than long-term investments. So our goal is to maximize what we have for staff. And we also want to make sure that we're not locked into something where we'd be penalized for taking our money out. So as we get closer to job action, it's important to have mobility within our investment in case we do have to go down the road where we're looking at job action. We don't want to pay penalties to get funds out to be able to pay everyone. So yes, there is, I will leave it as, yes, there is money available. Yes, we will be okay. But the goal is never to drain that account because it did take a while to build it back up after our last job action.
Yeah.
And I will leave it at that. As Pam said, the strategy will be part of the negotiation team's discussions.
Yeah. The other question, what accounts for the XCOM increases for the proposed budget? 144K compared to 2024, significant increase. It was 31K in 2024. That is largely the new labor relations team leader position that we mentioned, plus, some of the routine
well, here I can scroll
like,
down.
yeah, the increases of
So
our
here.
yeah.
So there's also advocacy, which becomes really important when we're going into a collective bargaining year. We had the in-reach to members, we have outreach and representation, so that could be anything from get-togethers. It could be if we need a venue to do something. We usually, in the past, we've done kind of a Sanka set. We've used the office because we do have the rooftop patio. Not sure today would have been the best choice for it. But again, this is the high end. We aim to come in under this, and we found in previous years we have, but we don't want to discount that, particularly in 2026 as we're going into collective bargaining, that there may be some expenses that are unique to a collective bargaining year.
Yeah, I mean, 2024 was a little bit less because we were, we just signed a contract. We were not ramping up, and we didn't have the anniversary year.
We did have PIMI. PIMI had
yeah,
just started that year, so there's some other stuff that hadn't,
yeah,
that's newer.
Yeah, so we will be increasing our advocacy and our outreach next year, partly because of our collective bargaining, to support our bargaining and also to support our positioning in the event of any cuts and so on. I see question from a colleague: what is included in expenses, professional association expenses? So we, I think we just discussed
right
that
now.
one. Yeah, yeah.
So that is the rough breakdown.
Oh, sorry. Someone asked about the budget increase, and I thought they were talking about the overall budget. Yeah, so we just answered the question about the professional association. That's where advocacy, governance, strategic plan initiatives for the strategic plan that was passed last year. Though that's where those are.
If the question is for the overall budget increase, a lot of that is due to, well, be frank with you, is legal costs.
Yeah.
Like I've said, we've had more members going before courts or before advisors, and sometimes we need specialized representation. For the mandamus, there's nobody in the office that can really represent PAFSA on that. We have to have a lawyer. So that is the biggest cost right now, are the legal ones.
Yeah, yeah. And I see there's a long question on internal communication, so not related to the budget, which I will just say about the PAFSO, or we call it the FS Facebook group. It's not a PAFSO Facebook group. It's a community-led group. And so if people have concerns about what platform is being used and want to switch platforms, I suggest you approach the moderators or the people on the FS, sorry, I want to say PAFSA Facebook group.
The FS Facebook group.
The FS Facebook group, because it's explicitly not run by us. It was set up way back when to kind of coordinate things for the strike. But since then, we recognize that this is not something that PAFSO should run, largely for legal, largely for liability reasons. So I get that there are concerns about what platform is used. That's something that you should take up with them. And we, as from my point of view, we'll go where the discussion is. So if people want to move, we will follow and find you where you are. Okay.
But I would just add that official messaging from PAFSA will always be sent to your email address. So please make sure that your contact information is up to date with the office, because that is the official way that we communicate with everybody.
Yeah, yeah. Folks, I've got my eye on the clock because we do have the Randy Orr thing starting at 7:45. Nicola,
at 5:45?
Sorry, 5:45. Yeah, Nicholas, this is not the moment, I think, to get into a discussion of the Facebook group. That's a separate thing. So I think we need to deal with the budget item now.
So I would
are there
then
any other
ask
questions specifically?
yeah, if there's no other questions, I would ask if somebody would put forward a motion to approve the 2026 budget.
Okay, someone willing to, Emily
Yeah,
moves
Sabrina.
and Sabrina seconds. Okay, excellent.
Perfect. So thank
Is
you.
there anyone opposed? Going once, twice, 3 times? Okay, thank you. That is done. Thank you, everyone. The budget is passed. I am going to move back to our next item, which is my slide. Here's my master deck. Okay. We're on the treasure thing. We are now on the discussion on the CBA collective bargaining agreement questionnaire. So with me, I have Dan Bertrand-Mir, our general manager, or sorry, our labor relations team leader. Muscle memory, Bert. I can't let you go from that job. And Paul Raven, our chief negotiator for our collective bargaining. And I just want to remind everybody that on this, we really want to keep the discussion focused on what we learned from you guys on the questionnaire and what this means for the message that XCOM and we're taking away for our what should be our strategy on collective bargaining. We can't get into details in this forum, unfortunately, on individual or group specific issues. We're not going to be able to get into specific strategies. And especially on individual issues, that's something that we really can follow up separately. This is for focusing on broad trends and directions. Just a reminder that the contract expires in June 2026, so we'll need to give notice to bargain around March 2026, and we need to notify the other side before that if we want to change our dispute resolution mechanism from binding arbitration, which is what we're on now, to conciliation strike, which would give us the right to actually do withdrawals of service, aka strike action that would have us off the job. I do want to be clear that our Constitution does mandate that this is a decision that responsibility that falls to the executive committee. We are supposed to make that decision in consultation with the membership, but there is a reason that the executive committee needs to retain that right to make that decision, pretty much right up until the moment that we get to, that we have to make the call. And that's because, frankly, the bargaining committee and the executive committee will have information on what is going on and, things that are happening and strategies that are being considered or, seen as possible or not possible that we're not going to be able to discuss in broad fora like these. And that we're probably not going to be able to discuss in some cases with the individual membership writ large, unless you make a commitment to be part of the collective bargaining team, with the associated confidentiality commitment and so on. So we do want to hear from people, and that's part of why we launched this questionnaire, which ended on Friday, the 17th, was out there for about 2 weeks or a month. And we got over 500 responses, which is great. That's, is more than 20% of our membership. I've just popped up the slide with that showing the top issues, which are not a surprise. Salaries, economic increases, way above anything else, almost double the next issue, which is job security. Telework and other remote work arrangements, third behind that. Issues related to workload, and then training and career development. So that's where we are in terms of what people have identified as the top 5 priority issues. I mean, where these things start to get real sometimes is when you start, playing one off against the other, right? If you have to ask people to choose between job security and telework, where does it happen? I mean, in this case, it seems clear that economic issues are way above everything else. So at least we don't have to play those off. But that's what people are telling us. And then, the other question that we wanted to know, the thing we wanted to know from people was, how comfortable are you with different kinds of job action? Because, if you call a strike and nobody comes, that's a bit of an issue, right? So it turns out that two-thirds of people, nearly two-thirds, are comfortable with job action short of withdrawal of service, like work to rule or information pickets or those kinds of things. Participating in a strike picket. Another, there's a significant drop. 37% are comfortable with that. Speaking out publicly, a large hunk are still comfortable about that. Accepting an arbitration decision, 30% comfortable with that. Quarter of you are happy to volunteer your time to oversee picketing activities. Another quarter would, be okay with a salary reduction. But, all of this means that nearly 75% are not willing to volunteer their time to picket and not willing to see a reduction of salary during a picket. And then only 21% are actually comfortable with an actual withdrawal of service. When we asked about other issues, respondents most often referred to increased or improved leave provisions, spousal support for accompanying spouses. I always want to say spousal support, but then I get mixed up because to me that, that's like alimony and things like that, not the kind of support that we mean. Concerns about job security in the face of the SIR, prioritizing members of the FS group for FS assignments, an overall aversion to conflict and withdrawal of service in the upcoming negotiations. So that's something that we need to be aware of. Other factors, I mean, until we get the November 4th budget, we're really not necessarily, able to have a clear picture that will make it much clearer what we're dealing with. I mean, we could see dramatic things in this budget. I mean, we could potentially see things like salary freezes or, other things like that. It's possible. I don't want to scare people, but we do need to be prepared for that stuff. Our job action fund is in good shape, but we can use that job action fund for other things besides just a strike. Other bargaining agents are mostly leaning towards binding arbitration. Their assessment of the environment is giving them, that sense. Maybe what I'll do is I will stop sharing to make it a little bit easier. And I will ask Dan and Paul and Bert to chime in on if they would like to comment or, make any additional points based on what we're discussing here. Dan, did you want to start? Do you have anything?
Sure. I was first of all really heartened to see a strong uptake on people responding to the survey. We took some time to craft those questions to try to get a bit of a heat map sense of where the membership was, and I think we got good results. But I'd be interested to hear any other questions from the group for sure.
Bert, how about you? Anything you wanna add before we go to questions?
No, I mean it was certainly some interesting response that we've received from members. I think for the most part, and I concur with what Dan just said. If we look at the sheer number of response that we've received, it's one of the hot topic right now, and I think people are certainly interested, right? So obviously, if the executive committee decides to move towards this conciliation strike option, we will need obviously the support of a whole lot of members because that's going to generate a lot of efforts in trying to coordinate things. But I mean, for the most part, I can see that there's certainly a major enthusiastic kind of sentiment out there. So it was nice to see. Thank you.
Thanks. Paul, how about you? Anything you would like to address before we open the floor to questions?
Well, just quickly, a few things. One, thank you again to the members for the feedback. We got a lot this time, and there's a lot valuable there. I will quickly note that while it's not my decision, not my choice, my personal recommendation would be to stay on the arbitration track. And just quickly in relation to the survey, just friendly reminder to members that not everything is captured within collective bargaining. So things like staffing, FSDs, MSH, those are tackled separately.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah. And I mean, I think some of the things we can look at and see, might there be a way to try to get some things in there, but we don't necessarily have a good track record of those. We have had some luck with some things, but we can always ask. And sad to say, in an economic environment where we may not be getting a big economic increase, sometimes those can be moments when you can get some non-monetary things addressed. And I think that would be part of our strategy and the things that we would look at going forward. So does anyone have any questions or comments that they would like to make for on the collective bargaining situation before then? I think we will probably do another session, another consultation, closer after we hear about the budget, after we hear more about the SURF, or how that is actually going to work. I see a question: what's the benefit of going straight to arbitration as opposed to potentially striking first before heading to arbitration? Air Canada flight attendants did the latter with success. That's not how it works. For our regime that we're in, you choose a path right out of the gate. You choose either binding arbitration or conciliation strike. Conciliation committee is not the same as binding arbitration. I don't know if Paul or Bert wants to explain, the differences between those, but it's a decision that we have to make upfront. We either decide that we are going to rely on a professional arbitrator to look at our situation and make a decision, and we agree to accept that, or we go to the conciliation strike path, which, the reason we did conciliation strike back in 2013 was that there was a significant enough discrepancy that we felt that we needed to get outside that kind of professional tweaking of a contract. It would depend on it depends, I guess, on what happens. We may be in a situation where we might be facing a threat that is big enough that we think, okay, we want to take the risk and go outside that regime. But I don't know that, like, right now I don't see it. But again, we're in some very interesting times. I mean, arbitrators are, of course, influenced by public opinion to a certain extent, but I mean, it tends to be a much more dispassionate process than conciliation strike. Bert, Paul, do you want to explain maybe what those different paths are?
To give a full explanation would be a 20 or 30-minute
yes,
period, and I don't think we have that time, but I'll try and be very brief and to the point here. So both processes start out the same. The two sides exchange proposals. There's time spent at the table explaining those proposals and negotiating. And you only go to conciliation strike or arbitration if you're unable to reach a deal at the table. And just for clarity, we've been on the arbitration pathway for the last 3 rounds, but we've never actually had to go before an arbitration board. We've either reached a deal at the table or settled in the time frame between being at the table and waiting for an arbitration board. So what are the differences? Well, if you're on conciliation strike, If you declare an impasse at the bargaining table, then the next step is called conciliation, which is basically just like arbitration, except the determination of the arbitration board or the conciliation board is non-binding. So it's like going to arbitration, but without it being binding. If you're still not at a deal after that, then there's a possibility for a strike vote and then a strike if the membership votes in favor of a strike. Arbitration, once you declare an impasse at the table, then you go through a variety of administrative steps and end up basically presenting your case before, it could be a one-person board, but it's usually a three-person board. And the employer does the same, and then that arbitration board renders a decision. One important point that I should touch on, though, is that it's not everything in the collective agreement or everything that was put on the table at the beginning of the round of bargaining that goes to arbitration or goes to conciliation or is the topic of a strike. It's only the outstanding issues. So it's very possible, and it happens all the time, where the parties will agree to a variety of different points, a variety of different proposals at the table, and then there's a handful left over at the end, and it's those issues that are put to either an arbitration board or you try and resolve via conciliation strike process. So there's your 20 or 30-minute explanation condensed into however long that was, a couple minutes, I guess.
Thanks.
Told you it was a strong team.
Yes.
And if I may, Pam, just from a strategic approach, obviously everything has to be kind of considered in terms of what's going on right now with the SIR exercise and the potential upcoming workforce adjustment situation right on the horizon here. So all this will have to be factored in I think in the decision-making process. And anyway, that's my kind of final thoughts on that issue at this point.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Any other questions? Question from my colleagues. Do we know if any of the major unions are going to bargaining before us? Most of us are all going at around the same time. There are a couple that are still in bargaining from the last round. PSAC, I believe, is still working on its big, like they did a big there was a big restructuring of some of their groups and they still haven't settled those contracts. But basically most of us are going around the same time in June 2026. So, there's always, I guess, like a bit of a lineup, who's gonna get their sessions scheduled first. And, that's something I guess the employer looks at. It's something we look at. Do we want to push to the front of the line and, try to get in early and hopefully get, maybe grab some stuff before they realize what they do, or do we want to wait and then come in at the end and see if maybe we can make some deals because the big ones are already settled and we wouldn't set any precedents. But basically, no, we're mostly going at the same time. Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, but
I'm not sure where they're at the moment, but historically the Alliance, aka PSAC, have been a little bit ahead of us.
Yeah. From the last BA president's meeting, it sounded sounded like mostly that track. The bigger ones, obviously, they take up more bandwidth. They get more attention and tend to be in there first. So they may be like, I don't know, they might have contracts that are expiring in April, whereas we're expiring in June. That kind of thing, depending where we signed. Any other questions, comments? I am not seeing any from folks. So if it's okay with everyone, and now I just messed up my screen. If it's okay with folks, I will put my PowerPoint back on, and I will go back to our agenda. Can you guys see my PowerPoint?
We see the Teams. We see your Teams screen.
Oh, what do they do there? Okay, I'll stop
select
that.
the wrong screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks. Sorry, I'm not very good at this. How can you tell? Okay. Now can you see it?
No, it's still the Teams one.
What am I doing? Okay, for heaven's sakes, I will just speak to you about the agenda. The next item on the agenda is the questions arising from the reports. So that is the Bout de Papier report and the professional committee report that were in the packages. Does anyone have any questions about that? About any of those? Lillian, I believe, is here. I don't know if Lillian is here, who can maybe talk to the if anyone has questions about the. No, looks like actually she may not. She's in her class.
Yeah, sorry, Pam. She got she kept getting turfed out, and now she has class. If you stop sharing your screen, I can share the presentation.
Could you? That would be great. Sorry, I don't know what I did. There we are. But it's looking like nobody has any, something in the chat. Yes. Thanks. Natalie's sharing the agenda. Okay, so questions arising from reports. It didn't sound like there are any. Are there any members' business? I see, no, that's somebody coming in. Members' business. Does anyone, nobody identified anything, any motions or anything coming from the floor? Any questions that were not related to any of the items? Nick, we could perhaps discuss a little bit more your question that you raised about the Facebook group. I know that it was a little bit weird because there was overlap. I mean, there were a couple people who were on the executive committee who were also moderators of the Facebook group. And because the group wanted to keep the group to substantive or acting FS employees, we did, as an office, we did verify that people were FS to allow them into the group. So, that did muddy the waters a little bit. And frankly, if we had to go back and design all of these things over again, all of these organic things, we might do it a little bit differently. But the fact is that group is a community-led, peer-led mechanism for information sharing and so on. And so, if people do want to migrate to another platform, absolutely, your decision, but something that needs to be discussed separately in the context of that group. I mean, I do recall that when it came up, I did comment to say, my one concern is that it took a decade to build that group, and there's 2,000 people in it, like near something like 80% of the membership. Whether you would get people following to another platform or not is another question. But if that is something that the community wants to do, then that is absolutely something that the community is free to do. Someone says we have a member login function. We did have at one point a thing called My PAFSO that had forums and places where it had a wiki. What we found was that it was very expensive. It was, in the tens of thousands dollars a year, and people didn't want to use it because they preferred the easier functionality of Facebook. So, I mean, it is something I guess we could look at, whether we should have something that is more specifically, for union functions. But, I think we would want to know that there was something, that there was a commitment to use it, and what exactly it would be used for. And we would be frankly looking for volunteers probably to moderate and run it, because it's not something else. So, Emily, I see your suggestion. If you wanted to, if you wanted to set up something like that, please go ahead. I mean, whether there should be a union-run resource for that is something I think we could certainly look at, but that would be, there'd be budgetary considerations and capacity considerations. When you're on XCOM, Nicholas, you can that's something I'd be quite happy to see you take the lead on as of tomorrow when you become an XCOM member. Something that that would definitely be appropriate to discuss in the communications in the communications committee. Anybody else? Any other questions, comments? Something, questions or comments? Yeah, sounds like Emily has views on what something should look like. I think, that's something that definitely the community could look at and figure out what they would like to see. I am not seeing any other questions or comments. So what I would suggest is that we bring this portion of the meeting to an end. We are due to start the Randy Orr Memorial Award. Is someone willing to move to adjourn the meeting? And second? Sasha moves to adjourn, and I see +1 who moves to second. Who is seconding? Okay, Fiona, I see you. I'm Fiona Jarvis seconds. If anyone disagree with adjourning? Okay, if no, if that is all good, I will say thank you very much to all of you for attending. Thank you also very much to our lovely PAFSO team, the Dan and Bert and Paul and Natalie, and also Marty and Absentia, who helped us set everything up for this meeting, and for all of our other events throughout the year. We cannot survive without this team and everything that they do. So thank you tout le monde, merci beaucoup, et je vais voir tout le monde dans 5 minutes au même lien pour la présentation de du prix mémorial de Randy Orr. We'll see you there. We'll raise a glass to Randy and to this year's recipient. I'm just gonna log off for a minute because I need to take a quick walk before we come back and do the presentation. So maybe give an extra 5 minutes and we can start at 10 to 6. Okay, thanks everybody.
Merci, thank you.
Thanks.